You being extra pusillanimous today. Pusillanimous.
What's the over-under on you having to urine in the middle of the episode?
Pusillanimous. Is that pronounced right? Let's check.
I don't think so. I do not think so.
Pusillanimous.
Pusillanimous.
Pusillanimous. There it is. Ladies and gentlemen, it is I, the diligent, vigilant, meticulous, sagacious, conscientious, analytical, methodical individual, the chiseled Adonis. But of course, you already knew that. To my left is a serial entrepreneur, a Filipino prince tycoon. Tycoon.
Tycoon.
Tycoon. Renee Lacan. And this is, we are Assiduous.
Which camera are we looking into when we say that?
Good look. I've been looking at my solo camera
From now on, I'm just gonna I think David, when we do that intro, we just gotta hit that, not even for the entire thing, just the last one, assiduous. Or no, tycoon. Yeah, tycoon.
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 And then we do that last assiduous towards this middle one.
Yeah, we'll
good.
figure it out. We're working our way through it. Yeah, but I hate astrology for many different reasons.
What are your reasons?
Not only do I think it's the ultimate cop-out, I just don't think it makes sense to say that my parents were engaging in coital affairs in February, thus resulting in my birth in November. Me being a Sagittarius, all of a sudden now, this cultivates my personality. Granted, I do believe it's somewhat in the same realm of religion, to where you have to have faith and belief in something in order for it to become somewhat real. Because the same thing can be applied across the board. But when people say, I'm like this because I was born at this time and the lunar cycle was in this particular way, like it starts to get to a point where I've had enough of it. Like when I was still out there, like speaking, dating, doing all this extra stuff, hearing people say, oh, well, I can't do this because I'm a Gemini, or I can't do this because I'm a Virgo, I can't do that because I have Cancer, or I am a Cancer. It's getting ridiculous. Like, can't have conversations like that.
Okay, so let me, I'm gonna put you on, I agree with you 100%. I think when people use it as to justify their behavior, it's bullshit.
Right.
Come on now, bro. You're not fucking broke because you're a Sagittarius. That's not why you're broke. You're broke because you're fucking lazy. But I do think that planetary alignment and the time you were born does have an impact on your life to some degree. Here's an example.
Now, when you say time, to cut you off, when you say time, are you talking about the era in which you were born? Like, for example, being
time
born
throughout the year.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Month.
So
and here's
now
a
you
good
can
example.
expand on
Here's a good
it.
example. I'm gonna use science right now. Science.
Okay.
Did you know that a majority of NHL players are Capricorns? Being a Capricorn increases your chances of becoming an NHL player.
Well, judging by the statistic, one would say yes.
Yes.
But I think that's more of a coincidence.
No, but there's a scientific reason for this. There's a book by, what's his name? He wrote Outliers. Malcolm Gladwell, one of the greatest thinkers of our time. He wrote a book called Outliers, and he talks about how hockey players are born in January.
Right.
Professional hockey players are more likely to be born in January, which will make them a Capricorn. Reason being is because the way the hockey system works, the cutoff for divisions is in February. So if you're born in January, the kids born in January have a year where they're a year older than all the kids below them. And let's say you're 15, 16 years old. That year matters a lot because kids are going through puberty. So now you're 15, 16 years old playing against kids that are a lot younger than you just because simply off the fact you were born in January, which now, because scouts are looking at these players since they're kids, increases your chances of becoming an NHL player, professional hockey player, just because you were born in January. So if I see a Capricorn, I'm like, yo, you should have played for the NHL. You blew your opportunity. You had the option of being a professional hockey player and you didn't do it. I was born in September. I missed my opportunity. I can be a professional NHL player, but you as a Capricorn can. So if sorry, so much syllables. If an NHL player came to you, if there's an NHL player, and he was like, "Yo, I'm an NHL player," and he goes,
This is introduction.
and he goes, "Yeah," and the only reason I made it to NHL because I was a Capricorn. You could be like, valid. You can directly correlate being an NHL player to being a Capricorn. This is science. Conclusive.
So do you leave any room open for the fact that, I don't know, piss poor skater, hand-eye coordination's not really up to
No,
par?
100%. I'm just saying, being a Capricorn increases your chances by like 700% to go to the NHL.
So if that's the case, why is it specifically the NHL as if other sports do not exist on the same sky?
Just because of the outside influences, and maybe you don't even necessarily have to be a Capricorn, you just have to be born in January.
Or maybe born in Canada. There's a lot of Canadians.
No, born in January, because if you look at all the factors, the one factor that makes someone more likely to go to the NHL is being born in January.
That's wild.
And because months are correlated with astrology, you could theoretically say being a Capricorn increases your chances. Being a Capricorn has the greatest chances of you going to the NHL.
So now that makes me wonder. Let's just say you have a family lineage of players that had been in the NHL, right? I don't know if Gretzky had children that played in the NHL, but there's one family that they had maybe, I think, 7 brothers and like 5 of them had went to the NHL. Let's just say you tried to plan out pregnancy. It ended up working out in your favor.
Yep.
Your child was born in January.
Yep.
You had them training to get prepared, to get ready for the NHL. They were ice hockey their entire childhood into their adolescence.
Yep.
And they didn't make it. Do you consider that a failed pregnancy or failed outcome of your child, your offspring? You failed as a parent. They
I
didn't
don't know
make
if you
it.
failed as a parent, but listen, the cards just weren't in your favor. I think ultimately it's all just a game of odds. If you're going to play a casino game, you want to play the one where you're most likely going to win.
Roulette?
Yeah, you're going to play the one where you're most likely going to win. You're not going to pick the one that you're going to lose most often. So naturally, I think that is almost the same thing where you can increase your chances of having a professional. Great example, I want an NBA son. My family's short. I'm not going to date a short Asian girl. No, my girlfriend, she has those black jeans and her dad's like 6'3", 6'4". Listen, my son's D1 bound. I'm increasing my chances of my son going to the NBA by doing that.
Right. So your intention of saying, all right, well, you found a girl who had good genetics, good genes. Let's just say you now have a son. Son comes out.
6'4".
5'4".
Oh, not my
5'4".
son. DNA test.
Ah, good
DNA test.
response.
Instantly. 5'4". I'm not even 5'4". Like, think about that. If my son is shorter than me, there has to be an issue there.
You know, I know a guy who went to college with him. Weirdest thing in the world. Both his mother played college basketball. She was 6'3". His dad was a tight end in college. He was 6'6". He was 5'4".
DNA test. DNA test.
I'll never forget. We were sitting in math class. I was in there. How did you come? His brother's 5'9". His oldest brother is 6'2". And then his sister is 5'11".
See,
But
so-
he's 5'4".
So the first two, definitely dad's kids. The last two, 5'9", 5'4", I don't know, man. Unless the mom wasn't eating during her pregnancy, unless she was like starving and the baby would just mouth.
And he's the middle child. All he showed me their family photo. Everybody's up here for the most part, and he's just down at 5'4".
DNA test.
It makes you wonder.
I told my girl, if my son comes out like 5'4", and it's not that I don't trust her, right? It's not a trust thing, because I love my girl. I don't think she would ever do anything. But at the same time, I have to look at the evidence. If he comes out, I'm brown. If he comes out super light-skinned, 5'4", something's got to give. That's not mine.
So then what if it's indeed yours, right? You do the DNA test, everything's the same. What alters in the pregnancy process? Are you now having her sleep differently? Is she now laying from the right-hand side, now sleeping on the left-hand side?
The best part about having money is now you can like I'm going to hire like a doctor. I'm having like look into her stomach every week to make sure that the baby's growing. And like, we're going to like predict the outcome. Like, how can we make him bigger in there? Can we give him like some testosterone so he comes out a man, like six pack?
You're gonna give a fetus testosterone while they're still inside.
Well, maybe not testosterone, but like the shit they give horses. HGH? I don't know what it is, but like
What kind of, you're gonna have a horse as a child? So at that point, you're just horse breeding your child at this point.
yeah, listen, we want the next LeBron James. We don't want like a, okay, you know.
So you're gonna have a big brown.
I take it back. If I have a kid, regardless of how the kid turns out, I'm gonna love him no matter what. But let's say I had one that was NBA, like NBA.
Oh, there's a caveat. Okay.
Yeah, like,
all
let's
right.
say one's 6'4" and one's like 5'4". I'm gonna go to 5'4" one. I'm gonna say, hey, do everything you can to become a doctor. Okay?
Damn.
Don't like.
So just Muggsy Bogues, Spud Webb, Nate Robinson,
Listen.
all of the little guys who since made it to the NBA,
Nah.
you are not inspirational
No,
whatsoever.
because the thing is, I want my kids, especially in today's NBA. Come on, man.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah, these dudes are not making it to today's NBA. I'm telling him, listen, you want to stick with where your odds are the best. You better become a great entrepreneur or something. You know, that's where your odds are the highest. My 6'4" kid, listen, you better hit the gym. You better be in the gym twice a day, working out, getting buff, getting strong.
Now let's just say, hey, they go to college, they try, they give it their best shot. The old college tried, it didn't work out in their favor. They got cut.
Okay.
Now they're just sitting at home. What happens? They say, hey, Dad, I'm going to go drop out. Basketball didn't work out. I think I'm going to try to go do this overseas things. I have to go overseas. You're still cut. Let's just say you hit like 29. You've played a total of 86 professional games, whether it be overseas, G League, whatever the case may be. Do you look at your kid that you initially went into the entire process of vetting the woman, getting her pregnant, then raising the child, stretching out the spine for age 0 through 7, all of these other things. Do you now look at them at age 29, 6'4", failed professional player as, you were a failure?
Nah, I don't think a child could ever fail you unless if I knew how hard he was working and I see him working extra hard, I don't think he would ever be a failure of mine. I'd be like, listen, in life, stuff doesn't always go the way you want it to go. If it were up to me, your dad would have been 6'5". I would have been dunking on LeBron, but I'm not. And I chose entrepreneurship, and it worked out for me. So I would say all that discipline you use towards sports, apply it in a different direction in your life, and I think you'll be fine.
That's good.
Now, if he was I think the only time that I would say, hey, my son is a failure.
Is he bum?
If he's a bum, yeah.
Bum. Oh.
Bum, like a lazy fucking dude. And I think the beautiful part about sons is like you can like kick them out. Like daughters are scary. Daughters are scary because like no, like daughter, like she's living off me for the rest of her life. My daughter wants to be a bum. If I'm around, like my daughter is living plush. She's gonna have like a Versace robe on, waking up to someone serving her wherever she wants, first class flights. My son, fuck him. Wait a minute. He's lazy, 18 years old. Yo, listen. The corner's calling your name. You got to find something out. Go sell some drugs. Do something.
Sell some drugs. Wait a minute. What's going on over here? Now he's really going to end up becoming a bum. Or maybe selling the bums could become his customers. That's best entrepreneurship right there. You find the bums. Oh, man, you look like you're going through terrible times in life. Let me add to that. Give you some
The
drugs.
way I see it, though, I think you pass down a certain amount of genetics to your kids. So no matter what, if I give my kids my genes, they're going to have some of this in them. They have half of what I have. They're going to be fucking good. Bare minimum, they have like a college education.
Well, you would think
They're like
so.
an engineer.
Because what's so interesting is, and I think that's the fascinating stuff, because I don't know the science behind or the
Neither do I. I'm just assuming.
right? I don't know any of that behind, but I've seen some brilliant people
Yeah.
have offsprings that are the polar opposite of what they have going on.
Do you think it's just a lack of attention?
Perhaps. Because if you are a highly successful individual, seldom will you find yourself in a scenario where you'll be around like that. Sometimes you'll mess around, you have nanny, something like that, where they look after said child.
Yeah.
But oftentimes, you're really not going to have the time to cultivate said relationship with the child, or maybe try to put into their mind, well, maybe not this way, but put into their mind, the structure necessary to go and succeed. But
One thing that's interesting, LeBron James's kid, he went to USC, right?
yeah, USC.
I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see how he does in the NBA, if he makes it to the NBA. Because if he does, I think that would be like, yo, LeBron did a great job. Because he was busy being the greatest player on the planet while having a kid, and then the kid ends up being NBA player also. You very rarely see that, like a kid becoming an NBA player as well, especially when the kid's dad is as great as LeBron. There's a big fucking shadow. And I think part of that is just because he has some LeBron gene in him. But I could be wrong. Like when I look at it, kid could be a complete idiot, and that's unfortunate. It's sad. I don't know, man.
I think LeBron's second son will probably be his best of the two. Because it even with the Ball brothers, where like granted LeVar never made it, to the league. I think he played in like an off season in the NFL. But LaMelo, I think, is the best of all of them. Lonzo is right there, but then of course the injury sort of situation is what's holding him back. But I think oftentimes, especially if you have somebody who is so excellent in what it is that they do, and then you now have a child who has to live in that shadow, you can't expect them to exceed your production or how good you were at whatever craft it was, because I think that's an unfair,
I agree.
That's an unfair marker for them to shoot for.
I agree.
But there is a sort of bare minimum, I guess. Like if you say, all right, you got to at least be able to make it to college basketball level. Like for example, Michael Jordan's sons, they never made it past the college basketball barometer.
Yeah.
But when you consider what your expectation for them was, LeBron came into the league, the expectation was you got to be a Hall of Famer.
I think the difference with that, though, is Michael Jordan was never really a physical specimen. Even in college, like he wasn't like super touted. He wasn't a number one draft pick type player. So his kids, obviously they got some of his genes, but that can only carry you so far. Michael, what made him special, he had this fucking killer mindset. He was an absolute cerebral assassin. With LeBron, I think the difference is he's passing down something that only God could give you. He's not passing down mindset. I mean, he might be, but that's not, like, I'd rather take LeBron's body over his mindset, pause. But like, I would rather have that. So he's giving his kids like, hey, here's a 50-inch vertical. Like, that's something that you can pass down that they're going to have forever,
That is true. So that makes me wonder when he was selecting, because obviously he get his high school sweetheart, him and Savannah, and everything, despite the fact that they have this Twitter photo that's been generating of him at a prom. He was at a prom with a white girl, something like that. So every single Black History Month or Juneteenth, this photo starts circulating. I'm like, this man's been married for a decade. He's been dating the same woman for 20 years. Why do you keep bringing up this one prom photo? And do people go to prom with anybody? Why do you have to bring this up for what? But whatever the case was, I always wondered with him, like, did he deliberately look at Savannah and say, hey, you got some good genes. We'll get together. We're going to make some beasts of children who can go out there and dominate. Because truly, funny enough, their daughter is, I think, maybe 7 or something. She's going to be killing it on whatever social media is dominant at that point. She's going to kill, because she already, I think, is over 1 million or something like that with all things zero.
But to be fair, LeBron is also, so when I look at like greatness out of everyone, when I look at everyone that's great, I look at Jay-Z, I look at Drake, I look at LeBron, I look at Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg even. I look at Jeff Bezos. I look at all these people that are great, that have done things. And LeBron is the only one where I'm like, that's the guy for me. I look at everyone else. Elon, not envious. Seems stressful to be a fucking billionaire trying to put people in space. Like, too much. Drake, it's like baby mama drama. You're a rapper. You got too many girls around. Not my ideal life either. Jay-Z's cool, but like, you're not a physical specimen. If Jay-Z was broke, women wouldn't want him.
Yeah.
LeBron is the one where it's like you got a perfect family, bunch of kids, billionaire, athletes, entrepreneur. His wife makes him look so good too, because like meanwhile you have Steph Curry's wife who's like doing shit all over social media,
playing with a wedding ring.
Yeah, she's like this with guys around. And then you have LeBron's wife who says stuff like, I was never really into all the TV shows and all the drama. I just wanted to stay home and be a good mother to the kids while LeBron did his thing. I'm like, yo, that man has goals. Like, when I look at that billionaire athlete, you have fucking videos of Rihanna and Beyonce thirsting over him at the games. It's like, people say you can't have it all. I feel like that's, like, LeBron has it all, So when I look at that, that's the one where I could legitimately look at his life and be like, I want that type of life. So I think that only comes around once in a lifetime. It's hard to use that as an example. But when he passed it down, I think when he looked at his wife, he didn't really think about it. He's like, listen, half of my genes will make it to the NBA. You take someone with half of my genetics, they'll still go to the league because I'm that beast.
Yeah, he is a monster. And what's crazy about him was the fact that this guy in high school was the best player in the country, probably for like 3 consecutive years. From like 15, they call you the chosen one.
And you know what's crazy? He was also the #1 prospect in Ohio for football.
Yeah.
So the fact that you could be the #1 prospect in football and #1 prospect for basketball is like ridiculous.
Like they have these running jokes where they talk about like, imagine you're just getting done with algebra. You got to worry about taking regents and statewide exams, but you got to deal with LeBron.
Gotta guard LeBron at 3.
At 3. Like, I'd be losing my mind. Because you're trying to focus, especially if because there's a lot of people who go to school, right? You go to school, you're just there to pass time, so you know you're going to go to college and go play college ball to try to make it to the league. But if you're somebody who's actually, you care about your academics, so now you're like, all right, I'm in this. Like, you're getting ready for the science fair. You're doing all this other stuff. You're doing all this extra computing with different sort of ingredients, trying to make a volcano explode.
Yeah.
But not like they do in the 4th grade. You try to have it to where maybe the school could explode, whatever the case may be. So you're in a situation where you might be on, a list or something like that. But whatever the case is, you're doing all of this science stuff. You got to deal with LeBron. You got to deal with Tom Brady. You got to deal with all these different sort of athletes. At one point, you're losing your mind. There's no way that you can. I'd love to ask a high school what is it like?
Well, I think it's different when it's like LeBron is different because if he's jumping out the gym at 17 years old, you're fucked. Like same thing with Zion. It's different.
Oh, dude,
Zion Williamson. But I think certain athletes, good example, my little brother, he played against LaMelo Ball in high school, AAU. He dropped like 20 points on him. My little brother's not that good. Like, I beat my little brother's ass basketball. But he played against LaMelo Ball, dropped 20 points on him because at the end of the day, LaMelo Ball is not a genetic specimen. He's just a really good basketball player, really knows what he's doing. Obviously, now he's way taller and he had a growth spurt. But as a kid, like, you can deal with that, you know? These guys like LeBron or Zion Williamson, I'm thinking, like, imagine you're a kid and you're playing against a grown-ass man.
Yeah.
Jumping out the gym.
Zion's an interesting.
He got caught up with all these porn stars recently.
Yeah. He's got he's having a child by some lady, some baby mama lady, then sleeping with porn stars, and then OnlyFans models were coming out saying, I slept with Zion too. For the one thing I can give him was, I guess if you got porn stars caught up on you, and this is what they do for a living, but they're so caught up on their experience with you. I don't know what that brother was doing, but I'm pretty sure they got some of the players' wives are looking like, what was he doing? They might be interested in what he.
The way I see it, it's what happens when you're young. You make a bunch of money, you lose track. That's what makes LeBron so special. Is like, bro, they gave him out of high school. They gave him a bag. He got chosen one. He's on ESPN, Sports Center. Same life, everything. Zion, he's like 3 years of like pressure, and he's already fucking with porn stars. He's out here, I don't even know what he's doing, eating a bunch of jambalaya in New Orleans. Like, he's doing some
putting
shit,
on
man.
weight.
Putting on weight, yeah. It's a mess. It's what fame and money can do to you.
Right. And you know what's so funny about it was, I'm looking at Zion. I'm like, but what? How is it that you've missed more games than you've played in 4 years?
Yeah.
But somehow you still got the energy to go find porn stars to sleep. Like, I find that interesting. Because I'm not going to say if you're a professional in something, your entire essence needs to be there. But there must come a point where you start to look yourself in the mirror like, I got all this money due to my athletic ability. And your best ability is your availability. And you're not available for your team, but you're available elsewhere for all this other stuff.
I think the issue is too, it's we could talk about it. When guys have no hoes growing up, they like Zion didn't get no play in high school, didn't get no play in college. So now that he's in the league, he's getting it all out of the system. Right now he's a brand name. Girls all of a sudden want to sleep with him. He allows it to corrupt him. Because the easiest guys to corrupt are the guys that have never had any experiences. The ones that are dorks are the easiest ones to corrupt because they haven't had any experiences with anything. And I tell that to all the girls. Like, every girl says, "Oh, I want a guy with no hoes." Here's the fact of the matter: if a guy doesn't experience life before you, he's gonna be the easiest one to corrupt. The second a woman throws himself at him, now he's like, "Ooh, I can cheat and stuff." But a man who's been through it all, who's seen it all, he's going to be less easy to corrupt because he's seen it, So I think Zion, the issue was he didn't experience none of that before. Now he's like, ooh, porn stars, like just like the movies now. His real life has become the porn movies he used to watch in college. He's shelling out because I saw something. He was paying like $100K a month.
$100K a month. 100K.
Oh, come on now.
And he could have easily, with his status, could have had that for free or substantially less. Because you got to consider $100,000 a month to a porn star at that. It's over $1 million a year. Like this, you couldn't sleep with anybody else. You didn't have any additional options. Because when every guy who's ever watched adult films at any point in their existence has all thought in their mind, I wonder what the experience is like. The younger you are, you look at it like, man, if we were in a relationship, I can get this every day. Then as you get older, you look at it like, I don't know about a relationship.
Yeah.
But I think I would engage in a bit of fornication, some coital affair. Then as you get older, you start to get a bit more repulsed. For Zion, as you stated, he probably was the kind of guy who ain't never getting no play.
Yeah.
So with that being the case, he was on some, man, you know what? I think I'm going to be in a relationship with this girl. Because she was tweeting as if they were an item the entire time. So then at that point, you look at Zion like, man, because what makes it so frustrating is there's nothing wrong with, you can date who you want to date. But when you're a guy at that particular stature, we're talking a $300 million guy, and you have options, endless options. That's who you selected?
So my question is now, do you think that he has that many options? Because the way I see it, I always tell people...
Not options for who he is, more like options for, what he can provide for them.
Fair. Because the way I see it, right, I know a lot of NBA players, just being around these girls before I was in a relationship, I know a lot of NBA players that were getting curved. I have just funny screenshots of NBA players DMing these girls, and the girls will ignore them. I talk about this a lot. I think one of the best places you could be in is not being famous, but not as an athlete or a rapper. Because athletes and rappers have the stigma attached to them of, oh, he just wants to fuck, he doesn't want to date me. Mm-hmm. So I think it scares away a certain amount of women, especially imagine Zion Williamson DMing a girl, reading her responses. It's,
as he wants.
He's only gonna get the ones that are like, fuck it, he's gonna give me money, cool.
Yep.
So I think that was part of the appeal with the porn star. He gives them money and they just do whatever he wants. I don't know, it's sticky.
It's interesting.
It's a shame to see him throw it away like that, though.
Yeah, because it's a situation where you look at all of those resources, especially because you're in a league where there's a great deal of guys who go and struggle with the same thing or had those problems in the past. And I think that's where proper guidance comes in. I feel like nowadays, across the board, there aren't elders per se who are giving, well, I shouldn't say there aren't elders. I don't think the message is getting across.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people will pass down wisdom and say, hey, do this, do this, do this. But for whatever reason, it's not computing in the youth's mind. And then all of a sudden they make the same mistake. And then 5 years down the line, they look at it like, you know what? You were right. Despite the fact that you took years upon years upon years trying to instill in them, hey, don't make this mistake. I made this mistake. Look at my life. You don't want to live my life. You'd rather live this particular kind of life. Do what they did to get there. Nah, I want to make my mistakes. And then now you find yourself in the same position, making the exact same mistake.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, the best teacher is experience, right?
Right.
And I can say that from experience because I always thought to myself, if I make a certain amount of money, I'm going to be good. I'm going to settle down. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to want anymore. And then sure enough, you make that certain amount of money. You're like, I need to make more.
Right.
I need more. If I want to do the things that I've envisioned in my head, I got to make more. So I see a lot of people that tell me, hey, you don't need to be spending like that. I'm like, make this amount of money first and then tell me the same thing. Because it's very different to look from the outside in versus to experience it for yourself.
Yeah, makes sense. And it makes me wonder now, especially with Zion, because a lot of people are dealing with this even across the board, whether you're at the high net worth individual or you're at the complete bottom. When it comes to dating, because we talked about it, sparingly before, but then now I'm looking at people in relationships because this is big popular on social media. Like everybody's got like a dating podcast, dating opinion, whatever the case may be. Some people are hitting the mark. Some people are way off of the mark.
I mean, our shit is a business, sports, life podcast.
Right.
We still talk relationships.
Exactly.
It's a regular, I think the reason it's so popular, it's a regular part of life. Everyone deals with it. So.
And truly, I think it's the most important part of life because at the end of the day, happiness, all this other stuff, it's all tied with relationships. Whether you're dating somebody or it's a friendship or a companion, a co-worker, whatever the case is, everything is all relationship. But then now, for whatever reason, we live in this very petty, toxic sort of culture now where people don't know how to get along. People don't know how to coincide with each other. And it just seems like it's become a very weird sort of dynamic where both parties are doing their best to not give 100% and pour into each other so that they don't get hurt. But the caveat to that is
you never have a good
not doing it, you'll never actually have a fulfilled good relationship because you're half-assing it.
Yeah.
So I've always found that very interesting because now with people trying to go find a companion, they're sitting there like, oh man, this person doesn't align with my values. But have you disclosed what those are, and are you actually holding other people to it?
I think the issues with the relationship is it always feels like a power struggle. And then no one ever wants to relinquish the power. So a good example, when you look at the structure of relationships throughout time, throughout history, whenever I look at anything, I look at the historical analysis just because it'll give you an idea of how we got here to where we're at. And when you look at it, before, marriages used to be with the church. A man would marry a woman and that would be it. But then eventually you start to realize when you do it through the church, then the man can control the woman financially. Let's say 10 years down the line, he's like, you know what, fuck you, get out of my house. The woman is now stuck with no way to live, no way to survive. So naturally the government got involved, say, hey, we can't just be doing this. So now if you get divorced, the woman gets half.
Right.
And then men now felt like they lost the power. Because let's say the woman were to cheat, now he gets cheated on and he loses half of his shit.
Yep.
And because of that, they start initiating prenups. Hey, this is mine, this is yours if we get divorced. And because of that, it's almost like a response back and forth. Because of that, women were like, well, hey, let's go 50-50. If we go 50-50, everyone's good. Now women are starting to work. And then we talked about it in a podcast prior, the more money a woman makes, the less eligible mates there are.
Right.
It ruins the marriages because now it's like they all want to marry these guys that are, if a woman's making $100,000, she doesn't want to marry a dude that's making $50,000 a year.
Nope. She wants to see that at that 100 or more.
Yeah. And women will always want men making more than them. That's why Rihanna dated a billionaire. Beyonce dating Jay-Z, right? Mariah Carey, she's worth like $300 million. She dated a billionaire. They always want that guy. They're always going to be attracted to a guy that's making more than them. It's like a genetic thing. So now that women are making more, men, like there's less available options for them to marry. Less people are getting married, less marriages are working out. And then men are getting emasculated now because it's like, well, all these girls are making money. And it's obviously hard to make money. So now if you're a guy making $50,000 a year, no women want you anymore. You're going to sit, you're going to jerk off to porn. It's a mess, bro.
It's wild.
And it's all spanned from like, everyone makes like, here's a chess move. Here's our chess move. Here's our response. Here's our response. And then the responses keep coming. And then it just like snowballs into this big fucking clusterfuck where 54% of people are getting divorced.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the vows don't mean anything anymore.
Yeah.
Because before, relationships, or I should say in marriage, it was all about responsibility and duty. That's what the entire thing was. You get married for a cause. Moreover, you don't just get married just to get married. You get married with a purpose. You want to build a family. You want to try to build a community. You want to be able to give back to a community, whatever the case may be. You have to have a purpose behind getting married. Now everything's all tied up in just, blind emotion. Oh, this person makes me feel great. I make this person does this for me, or whatever the case is. Let's go ahead and get married. And you don't have any clue of each other's values. You haven't really discussed what real world situations may be, or whatever the case is. And now you're just jumping into something. And the moment that things get tough, the moment that issues transpire, you're immediately ready to get out. Because relationship, and Chris Rock said it perfectly, where he had said relationships are easy. They only become difficult when one person's working on it. And now we're in a situation where, like you stated, everybody is just trying to, well, who can fuck the other person first? Who can get fucked over first? Well, if you make this move, then I'll have this counter move. And then and it's weird to me because they're not really communicating.
What makes my question now is like, where does it even go from here? Because now women are independent, right? But now you can't find any men. So it's like, where does it go from here? Do people just, and this is why populations are declining. Elon Musk tweets about it all the time. He always says like, one of the biggest threats to humanity is population is declining. If you look at populations all over the world, no one's having babies anymore. Because if you have a baby with someone, you have to commit to them, right? And babies usually come with marriage. And because no one wants to get married because of this chess game, populations are going down and no one's having kids. So it's really interesting to think about, because where does it go from there? Does society just die because no one wants to get married? Well, at least societies that are getting married are the ones that come up. Like, is that like a cyclical nature of life?
Because they're having, I can't say they're not necessarily, I don't think it's not that they're not having kids. I think there's just not families.
Yeah.
And because there's a broken dynamic, you're now sending the following generation into just a completely broken system. Because if you're accustomed to going out to the world, you come back home, you have a neutral family that's there. You have your father, your mother, siblings, whatever the case is, having the dinner at the table. You guys come together, and now you can really build. Because when you really look at communities that are thriving, it's primarily families. You look at millionaires, like 86% of millionaires are married. So with all this other case, you have to have like that structure that's there. And it all comes from, for one, having to make sure that your values are aligned. You can't just go into stuff thinking you can find everybody who can check off every box. I think that's foolish. Can't be in a situation where you say, all right, this person needs to have this. Of course, compromise exists, and compromise, unfortunately, is, somebody sacrificing for the other, but you have to take into account what is the ultimate end goal, right? If you have to take a step back in this one particular category in order to be with this individual, is the end game substantially better than what it would have been if you went with an alternative?
I 100% agree. Well, and the thing is, too, I think the issue also, social media, we've talked about it before, social media gives you the illusion of having all these options. And then the grass is always greener on the other side. That's what social media makes you feel. Because girls could be, oh, look at what her man does for her, right? And then they don't look at anything else. They don't look at the good part of that.
Right.
So it just gives people the illusion of there's so much better out there, when in reality there's not much better out there.
And what's so funny about it, and that's one thing that I despise on social media, like this simp. You have now this female simps or something of that nature. So just the entirety of a simp. You mean to tell me if you're you're not in a relationship with the person, then I understand. Where you're like, whoa, you're wilding, you're providing, you're doing too much, or whatever the case may be. That I understand. But if you're in a committed relationship with somebody, you're actually dating, you can't sit over here and try to chastise somebody for being a good boyfriend. You can't chastise a woman for being a good girlfriend. You should want to care for your partner.
Well, even being a good man.
Doesn't make sense.
I got roasted on the internet because I said whenever, prior to my relationship, I would just always pay for, if a girl was here, I would pay for everything. I would pay for the food. I would not let them touch the wallet. I think as etiquette, as a man, you should pay for everything. You're not a simp for paying for everything. You're a simp if the girl doesn't fucking like you and you think you can buy her with money. That's what makes you a simp. But let's say the girl likes you, she's interested in you, right? Obviously, you'll be able to tell if she's interested in you. It's obvious. If you can make her cry, she's interested in you, right? Not that I'm saying you should try to make girls cry, but you get the point.
Right, because it's emotion. And
paying for everything doesn't make me a simp. It just I feel like that's a man's place to pay for everything. But I think, guys, I said something. I said, as a man, you should pay for all the girl stuff. That's just how it should be, right? And if you can't, there's nothing wrong with that, but your goal should be to get to the point where you can. Guys, well, you're a fucking simp, blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, they're following all these girls that I know that I'm actually friends with, and these fucking guys, women have no clue who they are. So the way they're thinking is all skewed, because why am I the one actually hanging out with these girls? You're following them on Instagram, liking all their pictures. They don't even know who you are, So I think as a man, it's okay to pay for things. It's okay to be a gentleman. I think what makes you a simp is if you're doing it in hopes of the girl liking you. Thinking you can buy a woman's love is what makes you a simp.
I agree, because I always state there has to be a level of earning on the woman's part, right?
Yeah.
Because I've talked about it before where I said I understand hypergamy. I get why women would want to date up, and truly they should. You crave that security. You're not going to get that security with an individual who's not on that particular level. Yeah. I do believe there's a delusion that exists there regarding you saying you want this particular kind of individual, but you're not willing to contribute anything. It doesn't have to be financial. It can be emotionally, it could be spiritually, it could be physically, whatever the case is, but you have to be willing to contribute something. I think where the problem falls into with the natural order of the guy covering everything, it comes back to, am I being used? Because you can have a girl who you're courting or whatever, like, yeah, she's feeling me or whatever. It starts to get to a point where you're like, all right, I'm covering all of these dates. I'm covering all of these excursions. I'm giving you a place to stay. We're doing all this other stuff. I'm covering everything. Although you may not be, financially contributing, but at one point you start looking like, wait a minute, what do you?
And I think it
also
also
enhance my life.
It also goes back to the threshold of spending, because I think at a certain point you stop looking. Once you start making a certain amount of money, you stop looking at expenses a certain way. Good example. Let's take Drake. You think Drake cares if a girl's using him for money? Let's say she's like, oh, can you buy me this?
Nah, he makes
let's say it costs him like 10, 11 grand in a month, right? Paying for a girl shit. You think he cares? That 10, 11 grand is like what he would spend on a fucking t-shirt in one day. He doesn't care about that. It's like nothing to him. So the threshold is like, oh, she's using him for money, but it's like 10 grand, who cares? Fucking, I could literally, he could tweet something and make 10 times that. So why would he care about that? So I think the threshold also depends. Like if you're getting sucked dry, there's a difference. I think you're a simp if you're spending more than you're able to afford on a woman.
Right.
Let's say there's a woman and she wants all this extravagant stuff. I want this, and you're spending all of your fucking money on her. You're a simp. Go spend your money correctly. But if I have, I don't know, $100,000 a month disposable income, I spent $5 grand on a girl, I don't think that makes you a simp. I think it's just like, it doesn't matter to you, you know?
I think that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to put it, because it comes down to what are the resources and the financials that you have. Because a lot of times the conversation regarding, like, a lot of girls want to go on trips, they want to go to different places, and there's nothing wrong with spoiling your girl, right? Even if it's a woman who you're courting, you want to go different places. Because I'll say on the first date, one of my old hacks that I used to do all the time. I'd go out on dates all the time, right? I'd sit over there, I'd tell the waiter separate checks. Does not mean that I'm not going to pay. Because remember, even if you have two different checks, you could pay on one card. I would try to I'd play different games just to see where the mind is at or whatever. But I would always pay. But unless, of course, the date was so terrible, I'd just walk over to the waiter, hey, I'll just pay this half and go about my business. Because I was fucking savage back in the day, too. I was a fucking savage. Like, if TikTok was big back then, oh, man, I'd be a tyrant. So it's Tinder swindle. They had nothing on the Adonis after the day.
No, I would never. That's a funny one, though. I might do that with my girl. Next time we go out to eat, I'll be like, yeah, can we get separate checks?
Right? Just do little things just to spark up conversation. Because I think ultimately that's one of the things that is also lost, because a lot of times people feel so afraid to have a conversation with, whether it's their girl, whether it's her boyfriend, whether it's just somebody who you're courting or you're just meeting for the first time. You should never, especially if you're actually trying to have something long term. Why would you ever be in a situation where you feel as if you can't have a conversation with somebody? Because I'll never understand that. Like people who are in, let's just say you're in like a sexless marriage or sexless relationship, or you're in a situation where you're afraid to bring something up because the other person might overreact or whatever the case is. If you're trying to be with this person long term, that should never happen. Problems will arise. There'll be moments in which, there's conflict, but if you're not willing to go and extend the olive branch to have the conversation, you might as well just break it off clean. Even if, let's say you have children or all this other stuff, you're afraid of losing your kids, or maybe you might lose your house, and then you'll be in a situation where you lose half of the stuff. If you think it's something that can be resolved, you've got to go above and beyond and engage in the conversation and force the issue, even if the other party is unwilling to do so, because you have to almost preference it as, what are we doing this for then? If we want to stay together, we were trying to make it to what our initial goal was for the relationship. If we can't resolve the problem, then we might as well separate. If we're going to stay together, we have to fix this. Because the problem that happens in January, if you don't fix it in January, it's going to prolong to February, until August, until December, 3 years down the line, all the way down to 10 years down the line. Now, all of a sudden, you're sitting there 20 years down the line. You hate this person, but y'all still together. It doesn't make sense.
So I understand where you're coming from. I think this is a big part of it too, though. I think with women, I'm going to sound like misogynist. I'm not a misogynist. I'm just saying this as, from my experience, with women, the problem is never really solved. You can solve it one day, and the same problem will come up another day.
They're more interested in venting than they are.
Yeah, exactly. You posted something the other day where a woman had a nail in their head.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, she's like, I just feel this pressure in my head. It's like, maybe because you have a nail in your head, we can just take it out. And she's like, you don't listen to my feelings. And it's like, no, it's not that I'm not listening. It's that there's a solution. So I think women just want to be heard more than anything else. They don't even necessarily even have sometimes there's no problem. It's just the problem of being heard, and I think that's where issue comes in, because I know for me personally, and maybe this is one of my issues, I'm like, listen, I don't got fucking time to hear you out right now. I got the world to conquer. I got a planet to take over. I can't hear you out right now. I understand what you're saying. I get it. I can offer you a solution, but that's it. I don't have time to sit down for an hour and listen to you. I have to fucking conquer the world.
Right.
No?
And you know what's funny? I've started, and I think I saw this on Twitter maybe like 3 years ago. I started incorporating it into my primary relationship. So then with her, every time that she has
Why do you say my primary?
Yeah, my primary
It sounds like you have secondary.
Yeah, my primary
secondary relationship.
Yeah, I like to make it sound as if my options are still open.
Right.
They may or may not be. No,
Primarily.
she'll find out. But whatever the case is, I like to tell her all the time, like whenever she comes to me with like a problem, I say, okay, is this something that you want a solution for, or you just want to vent?
Yeah.
So I can find out ahead of time. Oftentimes, they'll say, yeah, I want a solution, but it's really just
A vent.
it's lip service for wanting to vent, right? And there's no issue with that, but I always, despite the fact, whatever the vent may be, I say, all right, I hear you out completely. Do you want me to give you a solution? The moment that I give you the solution, I don't want to hear about the problem anymore. And I make sure that I verbalize to her, say, I don't want to hear about the problem anymore unless you've attempted said solution and it failed. But if you've done nothing, and you come to me the following day and you want to vent again, we can't do that because I'm already at capacity. It's not going to happen. And a lot of times that's one of the things with conflict resolution in relationships as well, where when problems awry, they don't have that check-in with each other. For me, what I incorporate is I have a bi-weekly and a monthly check-in, right? It varies. Sometimes it could be bi-weekly or it could be monthly, where we just sit down, whether we're in bed, whether we're at the kitchen table or at a dinner, check in, where are we at, what problems persist, what is on the horizon if we don't fix this issue so that we can mitigate any problems moving forward.
I think that's the issue too, right? Because a lot of women will say, oh, I want a man who's in touch with his feelings. That's what women say. I want a man who's not afraid to be emotional. That's the biggest bullshit I've ever heard. Women don't want that. Women want a guy that's a problem solver that will hear them out. But they don't want a guy that's like, babe, today something really stressful happened at work and my boss was really yelling at me. They don't want that. They don't care about that.
Yep.
They don't want him to be emotional to them. They want to be emotional to him, and they want him to be able to like talk to them for 2 hours about their emotions. That's what they want. They don't want a guy that's actually emotional, you know. But that's where the I guess the miscommunication is.
Right.
Because I think there's a huge miscommunication when it comes to like men and women when it comes to that.
And it's not, and they always say, all right, they want somebody to communicate, but can you comprehend what's being said?
Yeah.
Because communication without comprehension is nothing. Just like information without application is nothing. So you're in a situation where you need somebody, that was a whole lot of rhyming right there, some bars for you, but you need somebody.
I feel like I've heard that before. The first time I heard it, I was like, ooh, fire. Now after episode
I said it a
6,
couple of times.
At episode 6, come on, man, you got to come with some new ones.
Hey, listen, I got some new ones for you.
You got to say pusillanimous. I don't like when my girl's pusillanimous.
Pusillanimous. It's pusillanimous.
Man, I
But
don't like when my girl...
basically, yeah,
I don't like when my girl pusillanimous.
It's pusillanimous. But if you pronounce it wrong again, you can't say the word again. We need to have some form of checks and balances here. But overall, I think one of the things with between
pusillanimous.
All right, yeah, pusillanimous.
I'm not gonna lie, I need a piece so bad. But I'm holding it just because I'm
Hold it. You'll be all right. We don't got too much further to go. Probably about like 15 to 6 hours, but whatever the case. But your kidneys, who needs them? So the way I see it, right, is with conflict resolution. If you're having issues with speaking with your partner, you could try different exercises.
This feels like therapy.
Right.
Do the voice again.
Right. This is
I gotta do
what I like to do.
Feels like
right?
therapy. Hold on, let me...
This is what I like to do. How many pillows do you need? Another one? I have another one for.
Oh, this
This is what I like to do. Right. I like to sit in a room with my partner for an hour silently. No phones.
Okay.
Or close the windows if you have to. Turn on the lights, of course, because you don't want to sit in darkness. Or do that if that's what you're into. And just stare at each other, right? You stare at each other for about 30 minutes. No words have to be said. You just stare at each other, just 30 minutes, right? It sounds like it's an exercise that you could try with children, but then as you get older, you just try it. And you'll begin to laugh for no reason. Right? You'll begin to laugh for no reason. That'll immediately lighten the mood. And then you have a physical touch for 30 minutes.
Oh, okay.
I promise you, whatever problem.
What if you can only last 5 minutes?
Oh, no. You don't got to get to that point. Now, granted, that may be the cap-off for the entire situation, but if you can only last 5 minutes, hey, man, listen, that kind of stuff happens. Now, if it's consistently 5 minutes, you better go see somebody.
So bad. Okay.
All right? But put yourself in a situation where you have the physical touch that exists there so that you can have the conflict resolution, right? Let me talk to the hard camera here, all right? Because let's talk about relationships where people are out here having problems at home. There's no reason why you should have issues that consistently persist if you're interested in staying together, right? So what you got to do is you go and you talk to your partner. You let them know, hey, darling, I love you. Or handsome, I love you. Whatever the case may be. You let them know that you're here for the long haul. And then when that's established, you then run down the issues that you have. You leave the door open for them to also establish the issues that they have, and you come up with solutions that can be incorporated immediately to ensure that the relationship can survive. But if you sit around trying to be hopeful that somebody will change without verbalizing what the issues are, do you expect any sort of resolution? Do you expect anything to change? That's foolishness. Try something. Maybe even incorporate some sort of fund between the two of you. When somebody is wrong and did something that was wrong, in order to make up to the following party, hey, we're going to do an activity that you really enjoy, or the two of us enjoy, or you have some sort of outing that you can go and do. Try to do different things so that you can keep the relationship somewhat flourishing. Because if you're not doing that, what's really the point? You're going to end up leaving each other bitter, having issues. You want to at least be somewhere where if you do go your separate ways, you have nothing but good things to say about each other. Have you ever seen people talk about their exes? Why is everything negative? I don't understand that. I have no issues with my exes. They have nothing bad to say about me. But for whatever reason, individuals out there, whoever they may have left, they hate them. Don't you think that's crazy? You were inside of somebody for 5 years, and they want to see you dead. You let somebody inside of you for 4 years, and you'd like to see them dead. That's crazy. That doesn't make sense. Maybe we should start communicating with each other. Maybe we should start comprehending each other. Maybe we should start trying to actually love each other. Maybe we should actually try to see what's best for not only yourself, but the other person as well. Because that's what it's all about. That's what relationships are supposed to be. You're supposed to not only elevate yourself, but you elevate the other person. They'll elevate you in tune. That's what reciprocity is for. We out here looking crazy for no reason.
Tycoon.
It's good to know, not tycoon. What did you urine away? You can't pee away your intelligence.
Tycoon.
No, not tycoon. No, would you have Tourette's? It's getting ridiculous. It's getting ridiculous.
Okay, so you have great thoughts. For me, I just had a great thought right now. This could literally be our thing every time, because I feel like if I'm going to do a coffee, usually I have 2 coffees, 2 black coffees, and a water every single time we film a podcast. I'm going to have to pee. But every time I pee, you can be like, and here's a word from our sponsor. And then you can do the sponsorship plug while I'm peeing. And then we literally 2 birds, 1 stone. We just knock it out. Boom, boom. Money right there, And then your voice is way better than mine. So I'm not going to do a sponsorship read because I'm not going to be very good at it.
A urination sponsorship.
So like when I go to pee, you're like, and here's to a word for our sponsors. Then you start doing it. Boom. And then when you hear the flush,
So when we're pitching to brands, we tell them like we're going to have a urination spot. Yeah. Renee gets up to go clear his demons, and in that moment, we'll talk about your brand. Yeah. In the background, you can hear the urine hitting the water, but that's not to tune out the great stuff with your product.
It's perfect.
Interesting.
And I think we can get good sponsors here.
Not a bad.
We just did, because I think about it, we just did a therapy session. I could have left, and you could have been like, and here's a word from BetterHelp.
Right.
Bro, banger. Banger. And then another one like, I don't know. We're talking about relationships, and you're like, okay, I need to use the restroom. Anyways, here's more from Blue Chew. Like, whoo, boy, we can make so much money off of that.
We can. It's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea. Urination sponsorship.
I think it would be a perfect segue to any of that stuff. Yeah.
Urination sponsorship. I like that.
Urination sponsorship. But yeah, man, I failed the over-under. It's hard. I drink so much water that I feel like my body just can't hold it in. It's just too much water.
How much do you drink per day?
I try to drink over a gallon a day.
Over a gallon. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
You know how many people are underhydrated in
Facts.
America? It's ridiculous. I think it's like 70%.
Everyone has headaches and stuff, and I'm like, it's because you're not drinking any water.
Yeah.
I like to drink a lot of water. I think just in general, if you drink water, I have reminders on my phone to drink water. If you drink water, you go to the gym, you eat healthy, life is just better. You're in a better mood.
Yeah. And you got to sleep. You got to make sure you get sleep as well.
Sleep is the one where I struggle with the most.
Because I saw you posted on your story a little bit a few days ago where you were talking about how you were pulling a few all-nighters.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you're in a flow, you got to go.
You don't want to fuck it up.
Right? You don't want to fuck it up.
Yeah.
But here's where you can become an individual who's standing in your own way. If you're consistently now hitting that flow at, let's say, 11 p.m., 12 a.m. or something, what are you doing in the hours prior that could be tweaked to where you can hit that flow earlier?
You know, I think about that a lot. And then there also, it goes into your sleep archetype. Because some people are just more creative at night. Some people are night people. So that's where it gets a little bit tricky. Am I just a night person? Is that what it is? Like, am I someone that just gets more creative at night? Because even like these optimization, body optimization, like dorks. Andrew Huberman, for example, he's not a dork, but he's someone that talks about optimization. He talks about how you get more creative at night. And you have more willpower in the morning. So I'm not someone that struggles with willpower. I think in my creative pursuits, that's where I need the most God speaking to me. I think that happens at night. So at what point do I say, you know what, I don't have anything to do in the morning. If I get into a flow at night naturally, why don't I just work with that schedule and just work at night? You know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because I see a lot of like rappers and artists do that as well, where they're in the studio from like 12 o'clock at night to 6 a.m. in the morning. But during the day, I don't know, like for me, when I record music, I like to go at night because you're just vibing, right?
Right.
In the morning, it's hard to rap about something creative 12 in the afternoon.
Especially when you just woke up. Like if you're in a situation where, let's say you wake up at 8, 9, you go to the studio at 12. It's hard to be in a situation where you're in a flow. Like I'm not so much of a morning person. Like I'll exercise in the morning. I'll do different things in the morning. Like I'll work, but I've almost never on a consistent basis had my best days working where the morning was balls to the wall 100%.
When do you typically shoot your content?
There's moments at which I can begin in the morning. Like I'll edit in the morning, like I'll chop stuff up and stuff in the morning. Just, I don't do the heavy bulk load of stuff. I primarily do that in like the afternoon, like 2, 3 evening is when I hit my stride. And then I can go and carry that momentum until the evening. But
So I think that's what it is. Because the morning, I feel like workout, great. I always work out in the morning. When I wake up, first thing I do is workout. Morning is always going to be workout for me. Easy work, just like catching up with emails, text messages. But the bulk of the creative stuff, filming content, I don't know, sending emails or preparing documents, I think tends to be at night. All my genius ideas come at night. So, or in the restroom while I'm peeing.
That too. That too. You have any other any good ideas that came to you while you were in the restroom?
No, I think just the reads.
Just the reads.
Cool thing about it, I think another cool thing we can do is we can document how much we make from the podcast. Because I think that's almost like a business building challenge. Because my audience is big on building businesses and making money online. And I think because we talk about business so much in this, I think it would be cool to be transparent and document everything we do on this channel. Because we talked about it, monetization standards have gone down. I think you need 3,000 watch hours, 500 subscribers. And we talked about how we could do that easily within a month or two, right? We could easily get this to $10,000 a month in, I don't know, 3 months, you think?
Yeah,
maybe.
I think so.
Between the two of us. And if we do that, those dolphins?
To a dolphin?
No, you see dolphins sometimes in the water. I think those are
dolphins. Oh, hopefully nobody tries to swim. It'd be terrible.
Yeah, so because of that, I think it would be cool if we just start documenting and we're transparent about how much we made off the channel, and then we built a fucking school with the money. Bro.
Yeah. There's a lot that could be done. And I like the fact, because obviously, you know, we're in a spot where you're starting it up, building from there and everything. And then there's so much potential that exists there. And because your audience is primarily, you know, already building businesses in mind, there's a lot of people who are yearning to, you know, figure out how to learn to start a business. So if you go through the entire situation, you're showing them, hey, this is what the startup looked like. This is how you work up from
I mean,
here.
that could be a segment on the podcast.
Because a lot of people, they'll sit there and they'll be like, oh man, I don't know how to get this stuff done. It's not like we got everything figured out. You're figuring it out as you go.
100%.
But then you could always look back, because I can promise you, in 4 months from now, we could look back from where we were now. Oh boy, man, we grew so much. We were able to figure it out. We've got this time of chemistry. We've got this going on. We've got that. So there's so many different things to where
I think if we did like a segment every podcast, and we were just like, hey, here's how much the podcast is doing. Here's our plans for it. Here's what we're investing it to. Like, hey, we're going to invest into production. Hey, we're going to invest into this. Hey, we're going to invest into marketing. Like, if we break that down and we're super transparent, I think it would be dope, because it could literally go from idea we had at a mastermind to now full on podcast that's making money to building a fucking school in Africa. Bro, we sat in this kitchen, and from that we built a school in Africa. That's fucking legendary.
Yeah. And I'm excited. I know we're going to end up doing it.
That would be legendary. So I think the transparency with that would just be awesome and inspirational for people. Because I feel like that's a big part of this too. It's like people could watch it and be inspired. If they can laugh and be inspired at the same time.
That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing.
We're doing God's work.
Yep. We're going to teach people how to not only make money, let people laugh, and then ultimately have an opportunity to watch something grow. So that's what matters most.
Fine.
Yeah, and growing that. So you want to do the closing, or should I?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, he is the diligent, vigilant, meticulous, analytical, pusillanimous, the chiseled Adonis. But you already knew that. I'm the serial entrepreneur, Filipino prince, tycoon, Rene Lacade, and we are Assiduous.
How did you end up? Did you become drunk after urinating?